Good evening, Red Star Rebels. It's July 4th, 2023. This is podcast season 3, episode number 14. We are Red Star Report. I'm Hal Lohr, and this is Voices for the California Nation. Ironically speaking, it's Independence Day, a day when an irredeemably divided USA is working tirelessly to rob the people of California of their fundamental civil liberties, celebrates freedom. An American hypocrisy easy to forget in all the excitement generated by red, white, and blue displays of Chinese and Mexican fireworks on a warm Los Angeles Taco Tuesday night. A holiday that every year feels more and more like a star-spangled victory lap for red state intolerance, racism, and Christo-fascism. A book-burning schadenfreude fest where Trump Billy maggots get to scream USA, USA in the face of people they no longer consider their countrymen while drunk on skunky American canned beer. And yes, ironic is the right word for this 4th of July, particularly from the desk of an admitted California secessionist. Because whether or not the average American is still capable of the critical thinking needed to realize that 4th of July is the celebration of the Declaration of Independence, the day America's wealthy slave owners, founding fathers, declared their intention and reasoning for breaking away from the tyranny of the English Empire. And 247 years later, for this California secessionist, it's amazing how with just a few updates this could easily be applied to California seeking independence from a hopelessly divided United States and their empire in 2023. So listen up. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them to another, and to assume among the powers of earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to that separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter it or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same objective, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. The California independence movement does not need to justify the argument for leaving the U.S. America's founding fathers have already done that, and for reasons with far less merit. For those powdered wig colonizing patriots, the American Revolution was triggered by the outrage of the so-called intolerable acts. The closing of Boston Harbor after their Boston Tea Party, a stamp tax, a tea tax, and the quartering of English troops in homes and abandoned buildings. Really, a tea tax? For today's California independence movement, the tyranny of the U.S. government forces Californians to suffer in a donor state so America can spend our badly needed tax dollars in states that hate us and on wars we don't want. A tyranny that threatens the very existence of California with U.S. fossil fuel addiction-based environmental policy. A tyranny that has rolled back hard-won voting rights and affirmative action for California's people of color. A tyranny that threatens the bodily autonomy of women with fines or even jail in some places. A tyranny that degrades the humanity of the LGBTQ Californians in half of its states. A tyranny that causes major portions of California's immigrant community to live in fear for generations. A tyranny where 6 people on a corrupted, partisan, and illegitimate U.S. Supreme Court that can, has, and will continue to overturn any law that reflects the progressive values of 40 million Californians without hope of change. I mean, taxation without representation? Californians pay for government services we don't receive, like FEMA, after the fires, and still have been constitutionally forced to suffer eternally with underrepresentation because of the Electoral College, the U.S. Senate, and now the federal courts. So let's try this again with just a little updating. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal and are endowed with certain inalienable rights. Among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among people, and only people, who can only derive their just powers from the consent of the actual people being governed. And this does include the U.S. federal government in the very words of its own founding fathers, by the way, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter it or abolish it and to institute new government. Speaking for the California independence movement, happy Independence Day. Because from a California independence point of view, it is kind of the ultimate irony that while America's fascists co-opt all things American patriotic, we California Secessionists can actually celebrate the Declaration of Independence and take satisfaction that America's own founding fathers make the best case for California leaving the USA as their voices from the past act as tonight's voices for the California nation. Next up, Shankar Singham takes us to Delaware, where they have just granted corporations the right to vote. You can't make this stuff up. Shankar, talk me off this ledge.
Good evening, Red Star Rebels and Renegades. Thank you for checking out another episode of Activism in Action. Tonight's topic, America's corporatocracy and its voting rights. That's right, folks. We have a town in Delaware that has given corporations a right to vote. America's corporatocracy roots grow more sturdy in Seaford, Delaware, a small vacation town that allows its corporations the right to vote. The very foundations of the United States is based on corporatocracy. It was used to justify its existence and separation from England. This is evident in the Constitution of the United States and the first section of the Articles of Incorporation. Incorporating is how we birth an entity, and that it can be recognized by society and by governments. As in human birth in the United States and Social Security, a corporation is also assigned a corporate number in which it will be recognized legally for its financial obligations, just like us. But before trying to suppose any possible implications of a corporate personhood in regards to voting rights, I think it may be necessary to expound on a brief synopsis of incorporating. In fact, a corporation is just another person on paper. Except this person on paper has more rights and freedoms than you and I. This person can file a bankruptcy, be dissolved, and then birthed again, and have new creditors and zero debt. This person on paper can negligibly kill someone and no one go to jail. This person on paper can influence elected representatives more so than you and I through lobbyists and campaign contributions of insurmountable amount of money. And this person doesn't even have to be a U.S. citizen in order to exist and do business in the United States. And now, as of June, this person on paper has the right to vote in Seaford, Delaware. Seaford views corporations' right to vote as an economic development tool for the town in a bid to attract more businesses to set up shop in the vacation getaway. But as innocent as it sounds, it opens up the floodgates to corporate personhood and an even tighter grasp on government. When the measure went to the Delaware State Congress, the Democrats hardly put up any argument. In fact, they seemed to be in favor of the measure, siding with their Republican colleagues. Of the 8,000 residents of Seaford, 340 are registered to vote. With corporate personhood voting, that would increase another 240 votes. And given a 50-50 red-blue split amongst the human vote, it seems that corporate dominance may be the future at Seaford. But don't misunderstand my sentiment. There are many advantages to a corporation, benefits that could help and push society out of a range of troubling issues. Not having to be a citizen of the United States to form a corporation, that would allow undocumented foreign tradesmen to be a legal entity, complete with a bank account, a credit line, and a tax ID to pay their fair share to Uncle Sam. And which politician in their right mind would deport a corporation? Those with the anchor of a student debt loan can simply start new under the corporation's credit. Not to mention all the financial tax havens corporations enjoy would be a boon to struggling families, balancing the checkbook at the kitchen table. If only their employers would write their paycheck to their corporation instead of themselves. But why don't employers pay your corporation instead of you? That's right, folks. It's because they don't want you to realize the benefits they themselves have been enjoying. Even at the cost of your employment in taxes and medical care, they do not outweigh their corporate benefits. The vast majority of Americans know next to nothing about incorporating. And that's exactly what they are counting on, folks, our ignorance. If it were commonplace for the average individual to know about the corporate benefits, you can bet your bottom dollar the right-wing fascists would never allow corporations the right to vote. And if measures gain steam nationally, and as more people become aware of the possibilities of incorporating, you better believe that the laws will be passed restricting certain types of corporations and banning the use of corporations by certain groups of people will begin. As Californians, we should recognize these warning signs as a massive slippery slope into the pits of fascism. Commercialism would be the dominant arbitrator of all ideas. It may give rise to massive rewards to mediocrity, the mundane, the unintelligible, logical fallacies, just anything that would promote profits over the better good, more so than it is now. In its nature, the corporation itself is self-serving. It cares not about individuals, nor even other corporations. Allowing it the right to vote would mean a definite end to the United States as we know it, and the rest of the planet would witness a nation committing suicide through self-serving commercialism, or worse, a world war for corporate profits alone. It would be wise, California, to nip this in the bud and perhaps enact legislation or a petition to outlaw or ban corporate voting at the ballot box. Though I fear at the rate the spread of information is today, it may already be too late. Contact your representative, or even better, start an initiative to ban corporate voting rights. That's all I got. Back to you.
Every day it's something. I mean, really. Corporate voting. Thank you, Shankar. I mean, thank you for the report, but it's actually becoming hard to become surprised. Let's keep moving. Tonight, we have another installment of Red Star Rising with Matt Owen, as Matt adds an appendix to his initiative to make the United Nations Human Rights Declaration a new foundation for California's future.
Hello, everyone. I thought I'd take this opportunity to make a little appendix to my earlier video on the California Human Rights Initiative. I made it deliberately simpler than any of the other initiatives that it follows. A lot simpler, a lot easier to understand. The strategic thinking behind it is as follows. Article 1 or Article 3, Section 1 of the California Constitution has two clauses. The first clause that binds California to the United States, we do propose to delete. Okay, of course we do. We're the California Independence Movement. Now you look at the U.S. Constitution, and it is silent on secession. It really doesn't talk about it. That's subsequent rulings, Supreme Court rulings. But the Constitution itself has never discussed secession. Had it outlawed secession the way the California Constitution presently does, it would never have passed the Constitutional Convention. They would not have given up that option. California had an anti-secession clause imposed on it from the outside, from the invaders. So yes, we do propose to delete the first clause. The second clause is what's really of interest, because it binds California to the federal Constitution. We propose to replace that with a article that binds us instead to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the basic charter of human rights of the United Nations. Now, there are going to be those, here's the thing, there are going to be those who insist that such a binding is unconstitutional, which means that they are insisting that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is unconstitutional, which they have from time to time. Okay. Well, the direct implication of that is that the U.S. Constitution violates the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, the two go together. So if they want to insist that their Constitution violates we got no problems with that insistence. In fact, we're insisting it ourselves. They would agree with us. Do they really want to do that? Because that would basically give us what we need to accede to the Universal Declaration and take our place, California's rightful place as a nation amongst nations, with the world's fourth largest economy at present. So do they really want to do that? Given that the long dark cloud of fascism is galloping across the U.S. and in the red states, and now those who are leading that charge have friends in the U.S. Supreme Court majority, things are going to happen very, very quickly, particularly before the 2024 elections, which we think will be the watershed. So that's the basic thinking behind this, is that rather than a Declaration of Independence, article of secession, which would directly place us at loggerheads with the U.S., we draft article of accession in the second clause of Article 3, Section 1, that we accede to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and admit no charter that contradicts it. So it's a gauntlet that, if picked up, we throw it down. And if the Federalists pick it up, it's on them what happens next. Okay. So it's a declaration of accession, not secession. Okay. We throw the gauntlet of accession down. If they pick it up, then they're basically kicking us out. Okay, so that's the strategic thinking behind this particular human rights initiative. Right? Delete the first clause that binds us more tightly to the U.S. than the U.S. insists on its states being bound. Oh, and by the way, as far as having a stronger human rights protection, we already have that guaranteed as our right by the Pruneyard decision. I've been to the Pruneyard Mall in San Jose. Nice little mall. But they didn't allow petition circulators until we insisted, as per the California Constitution ratified by the U.S. Supreme Court at that time, that we could offer stronger human rights protections than the U.S. does, which is what this does. Okay, the Universal Declaration offers much stronger human rights protections than the U.S. Bill of Rights. So I think we're on very solid ground, and the simplicity, the elegance of this solution, I think, will be most persuasive. Okay, it's not going to be page after page after page. It's going to address an existing clause in the California Constitution and rewrite it in terms of our acceding to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which we have the right to do, and we will insist on that. So, wish me luck launching this campaign, which I'm already starting to do. Viva Gran California Libre.
Thank you, Matt Owen, for answering the question. Is it not the basic nature of insanity for Californians to look to the U.S. Constitution that was written by slave owners and steeped in systemic racism to be the foundation for any sort of fair and just society in a future California republic? Think on it, Californios. I mean, really, take all the time you need. This is Talking Points. As red state legislatures and the U.S. Supreme Court continue to push America into a Christo-fascist theocracy, for tonight, as a California secessionist, I'm going to answer an age-old Christian conundrum. A question that has now become a California political question that goes to the core of America's hard right regression into morbid superstition. Because a lot of what's going on in today's red state America and its legislatures, and of course the U.S. Federal courts, really should have answered this question before any of these anti-LGBTQ or anti-trans or anti-abortion policies went into effect. So here's the question I need the American hard right to answer, and this is Talking Point. How many angels can dance on the head of a pin? Because according to every MAGA hat conservative I've ever met, they should know this. Because they swear. It's a fact that God loves America and hates progressive values, socialism, wokeism, and of course, California. And our founding fathers really never wanted a true separation of church and state after all, right? They're positive Christian conservatism has a God-given mandate to save America, one nation under God, from its evil prince of lies, satanic ways, even if true patriotic Christians have to lie, cheat, steal, or even kill to do so. So please enlighten me. How many angels can dance on the head of a pin? Because Christo-fascist America has to prepare the way for the second coming of Jesus and his host of angels as Armageddon draws near. And that apparently won't happen if gay people can get married, or drag queens can read fairy tales, or trans people change their pronouns, or if women can have abortions or get equal pay. And if we send any support to Palestinians or start to drive electric cars. I mean, just because the Bible says Jesus drove the money changers out of the temple and said it was easier for a camel to walk through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven, that doesn't mean that God doesn't love free market American capitalism or anything, now does it? So really, red state America, tell me, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? Tell me, how many dead kids from school shootings, or maybe the dead people at the Pulse nightclub, or forcing a 14-year-old girl to keep a rapist's baby is the will of God? I mean, really? Because everyone says God moves in mysterious ways, but Christo-fascist America knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that God loves who and what they love and hates everyone and everything that scares them or makes them feel uncomfortable. How convenient that modern ultra-conservative values and those mysterious ways that define God's law always march to the beat of the same drummer. While anyone who cites religious convictions as their reasoning for doing awful things is entitled to man's law as constitutional protections, because a supposedly omnipotent God's laws need man's laws to keep God's laws from being examined closely enough by men for that one fundamental, fatal flaw in the whole premise of a Christo-fascist American future. For all the moralistic legal gymnastics that Christo-fascist America has performed to use the legislature and the courts to oppress everyone they feel are undesirable in the eyes of their conservative Republican God, they've never actually produced one credible shred of evidence that the God whose laws and will they're citing is actually anything more than their mass delusion of an imaginary friend, a convenient construct that within a few election cycles can be used to justify the normalization of oppression that a red state-dominated federal government would bring crashing down on all Californians. So, how many angels can dance on the head of that pin? Well, if we look at nothing but the facts, given 2,000 years without proof, the simple answer from a California secessionist is all of them. Because things you can't prove exist don't really require much of a dance floor now, do they? Just like Christo-fascist superstition and dogma, they can't prove a vengeful American God exists and shouldn't carry any real legal weight in making any federal laws and policies that will oppress real, living, breathing Californians. This is Talking Points. That's podcast number 14 of season 3. For more Red Star Report information, check out our website at redstarreport.com. Please subscribe to our Red Star Report YouTube channel, go to our Red Star Report Facebook page, Twitter page, and Instagram page, and give us a like and a follow. Because if you want to support the real California independence movement, hashtag New Cal Exit Media Group, it's all about the algorithms. And seriously, click that link below and pledge support to our friends at listener-supported radio KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles. KPFK deserves your support too. Thanks to all our Red Star Rebels for watching. We are Red Star Report.